Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. We are recording. I'm excited. Man, the guest that you are about to hear is not an easy person to get on a podcast because he is busy. He is growing things, and we have sort of tried to line up schedules, and it's finally happened. So I am really excited to connect with him. I wrote this down in my earlier notes. It's kind of like trying to catch a shooting star, honestly. And this guest actually needs no introduction, but I would say he actually deserves one. He is a marketing and sales leader, and also a thought leader, which is a great combination as we talk about evangelism. He has led teams that are marketers, teams of sales, even dev teams across his gigantic career over the decades. We won't say how many decades, but he's also an innovator, right? One of the things that I really like about him is that he's open-minded to both new approaches and new tech. And so that's why I'm talking to him today. So many more things I can say about him. He is the Chief Growth Officer at Refine Labs. Cassidy Shield, welcome to the show, sir.
Casey, thanks for having me. And I think I've done all those things because I'm old. That's what happens when you've been around a long time. You get to try a variety of different things out. And yeah, I've been wanting to get on this show for a while. I don't know if it's because I'm busy or if it's just unorganized, but I appreciate your patience. So looking forward to it.
It's probably all my fault, honestly, right? Yeah, but hey, we're here. And so what I want to do is I can't wait to learn from you. I've got my blank paper over here. I'm ready to just, absorb all this knowledge. But first, I have to pass you something. It's heavy, but I know you work out. So here it comes. Ugh. Okay. Grab for me Thor's hammer. Go ahead, grab that. Yep. Okay. You got it?
I got it.
Okay. Great. Take Thor's hammer and smash some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
All right. The one we're going to smash today is lead gen is not marketing.
What? Lead gen is not marketing? I literally just heard a marketing meeting and they were talking about lead gen, and this was wrong.
This is wrong. And let me be very specific. When I think of lead gen, I think when a lot of us think of lead gen, it ties back to the goal of the marketer is just to collect leads and hand those leads over to the sales team and let the sales team deal with those leads. And usually the way they go about doing that is they gate a bunch of content, they gate their ebooks, they gate their product demos, they write big, long research reports that don't contain anything.
Yeah.
They spend money to do this. And the reason I say that is because when we look at hundreds of different companies and the performance of lead gen campaigns, the one thing I've seen universally consistent is they don't perform when it comes to generating revenue for a company.
Really?
And so, on top of that is it's not fun work as marketers. Marketers want to be creative. They want to be innovative. They want to drive demand. They want to do things that are legendary, and lead gen is not legendary.
Lead gen is not legendary. Oof. But it's interesting because I think a lot of us hang our hat on that, or the idea of at least if we can generate leads, we can say that we're helping with revenue.
So there was a point in time when this was a valid strategy. So you think about 15, 20 years ago, when we as buyers, it was harder to access information. It was harder to learn about companies and learn about products. And you're kind of beholden to a company to educate you. And that's kind of where this stemmed from. It was hard for salespeople to get contact information to figure out who they should talk to. And so, this process kind of was born out of that. Let's create some valuable content. And I would have maintained, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, the content was valuable, whereas today it's not so valuable. Let's gate it. Let's collect the lead. Let's hand it to the salesperson because there's no alternative for that salesperson to get that contact information. And then the sales team can go do whatever they do. So marketing is kind of serving the sales organization. You think about it today, and I've run marketing and I've run sales, the sales team that I run, we don't need leads from marketing. We don't need contact information from marketing. I can go into any database, whether it's ZoomInfo or Rocket Reach or Cognizant, and I can buy contact information for 20 cents a contact. And when you think about that, I think this is a massive opportunity for marketers. It's kind of unshackled them from the need to provide contact information to a sales organization. They don't need to do that anymore.
Wow.
So instead of creating mediocre content to collect a lead, which I would define as contact information here, go off and do something great with your content strategy. Start a podcast. Start a community. Start a newsletter. This is going to force you to build content that's valuable and good for your community or your organization or your audience. But that's what you should be doing as a marketer. You should be building stale ebooks or running a week webinars that you're trying to like bait and switch somebody into attending so you can get their contact information so your sales team can call. That's not marketing.
Is it like our sites are too low? We just want to kind of like create this tactical, humdrum content that doesn't really matter, and you're saying no, go swing for the fence.
Yeah, swing for the fence. I mean, if your sales team needs to figure out who to talk to, they can go do that on their own now. What you think about what a company really wants to do is they want to drive real demand that turns into revenue. And to do that, they want to build awareness of who they are so people know and trust them. That's kind of the name of the game today. Awareness, trust, authenticity. These are all things that marketing focuses on. They want to create educational content. They want to be kind of part of like the conversation.
Yeah.
But they want to do that in a way that people will raise their hand to come talk to you. And this is like the fundamental difference between where I think we need to be and where we are. Where we are today is I'm going to get Casey to give me his contact information so my sales team can badger him, or I'll throw it into a nurture and send you 15 emails until I beat you down, versus just being there for you and supporting you and educating you to the point where you realize, okay, I'm ready to buy, and I'll raise my hand and say, hey, listen, let's have a demo, or let me talk to your sales team, or let me try your product. That's the demand that converts the pipeline and revenue consistently. And so the game, I think, for the marketing team is that's what they should be focused on, not just leads at all costs.
How do you make that shift? You snap your fingers, and aren't people still expecting, isn't sort of the hierarchy, all the structure still expecting you to deliver leads?
Yeah. So,
sales
this is not a,
right.
Yeah, this is not a change that you can make by just doing it without buy-in from your executive leadership, your sales team, etc.
Okay.
The first step is probably the toughest step for a marketing leader to do. And that is, you have to be brutally honest that the way we're doing things today do not work. And so, obviously, if you're coming into a new organization, this is easier to do than if you've been a part of the problem for the last 3 or 4 years in a company, right?
It's so true.
But nobody wants to change unless they're forced to change. And the way you force somebody to change is by taking a harsh look at the reality. And, we do this with our customers. We help others do it who aren't our customers through our community.
Yeah.
And that is, how do you just analyze the data in a way to be brutally honest with your leadership about what's working and what's not. And, when you go talk to the sales leader, they know it's not working, because what happens, the sales team never follows up on the marketer's leads because they know those leads aren't going to convert to revenue. And so we have this kind of, what kind of symptom of this is this marketing and sales conflict, where sales is like, the marketing leads aren't any good, and the marketing team is like, the sales team doesn't follow up on my leads. We see this all the time in practice, regardless of what you hear on LinkedIn. And the reality is, like, sales teams go where they can optimize their ability to make money. And if you're handing them leads that they know over time do not convert, they're not going to spend any time on those leads. And that's what's happening. Now,
they auto-optimize, really.
They auto-optimize. That's what you would do if you're incented to maximize your ability to hit your quota.
Yeah. Okay, so with that being said, then the old school triggers, the old school methods, things like webinars. Are webinars dead?
It depends how you. Yeah, here's what I think is dead. I'll see. I'm gonna. I got a specific case in mind. I'll see a company who I know, and I know the leadership of that company. I'll see a post on LinkedIn
What's
saying,
the company name rhyme with? Just kidding. Go ahead.
I will see a post on LinkedIn and saying, "Hey, we have this webinar in like a month. Come sign up for a 30-minute webinar in a month where we talk to Joe Smith from X, Y, and Z company about something." And I'm like, what? Like, it's like you make me run a webinar once a month or once a quarter, and you're doing what we're doing here on Zoom, but you're doing it because you want to attract people there so you get their email addresses, you can give the sales team and have the sales team badger the people. And the first time you do this, you might get people joining the call. But as soon as joining the webinar, but as soon as that salesperson starts badgering them, guess what they don't do on the next webinar? They don't show up.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it, what we would recommend, and I'm sure you'd recommend the same thing, take a step back and think about the webinar as like, it's a live event. It's for your community. It's for somebody to learn and educate themselves. And so, have that once a month or have that once a week and invite somebody on and do what we're doing here in a live setting so
Mhm.
people can learn, but don't expect anything in return.
Yeah.
Take the content, repurpose it, use it on different platforms, because we'll talk here for an hour. It'll be immensely valuable. And I'm sure we'll use this in a variety of different ways between the two of us to get this message out to the audience. And it's no different from what a company should do and how they reinvent kind of the idea of a webinar. And don't call it a webinar either. That word's like old.
Yeah. You're right. It kind of feels like that. I mean, I'm totally still in this murky part. Even myself, the idea of it's fun to present, but I remember even with some of the last companies I've worked at and whatnot, sometimes the people that attend are not necessarily your buyer, right? They're your groupies, or they're people that like seeing this or have the time to watch this. And I've talked to some folks who say that they get more conversions from the people who don't attend, they get the recording afterward. And it's like, why are we playing a game, for this live event that could have been recorded? And why not just serve it up now? Like, why wait the 30 days? That sort of came
Exactly.
to mind when you were mentioning,
Yeah.
like, you kind of brought it up, like, oh, cool. This thing happens 30 days from now. Okay. Why? Why not right now? And then also, what's the value of it being live if you're just serving up stuff that anyone could have, had recorded?
Yeah. I think if you're talking only one way in a live event or a webinar, then I absolutely agree with you. The way we happen to use this, and we just got back into it this week with our CEO. He holds he's going to be holding a live weekly event. We did this for 2 years, and he's back at it. And it's the two-way conversation. It's like, we're not trying to sell anybody. We want to have a conversation, a dialogue with our community. He present a topic, and we want questions back. And we use this as kind of market and customer insight. By the questions that come at us and the things that people ask and where they're what they want to know or what they don't understand, it helps us understand what the market needs right now. So we use the live setting not to drive sales. We use the live setting to get insight from the market. And then to your point, a lot of the people who are on these calls aren't going to be ideal customers,
Yeah.
but they are the followers. And so what
Right.
they do is they take this message and they propagate it out to their network as well. And then we take this content, we put it on a podcast, we put it on LinkedIn, we put it on TikTok, and we've multi-purposed one asset into a variety of different types of content across multiple distribution mechanisms. And so we get a lot out of this, both in terms of insight and learning, and also the content we can repurpose and distribute. To me, it's pretty simple, but that's the play.
And nowhere in that were you talking about the transactional nature of how this has been in the past, the Legion myth that you're smashing, the I give you this, you give me that. It's just give, right? Join this weekly event, and it's not the beginning of a lead funnel that we're gonna get harassed. Maybe it is, but you're not gonna get harassed by someone. I mean, how do you play that?
Yeah, we would never do that to our community, because as soon as we do that, guess what happens? They're not going to show up.
Not gonna show up.
And so we're very explicit about this. This is about educating and getting kind of our point of view out in the world and helping marketers
Yep.
do better on their own.
Yeah.
And then we know at some point there's going to be a very small subset of those who want our help, and they'll come ask for it when they're ready. But by and large, most people will take kind of our insight and they'll go do it themselves. And we're perfectly happy with that. That's
Yeah. And then at some point they realize, wow, this is a lot of work.
Then realize it's a lot of work. Or they'll come back and be like, I was able to get from point A to point B, but I need help getting to point C.
Yeah, which makes them actually a better customer and a better client at that point too, because they've put some irons in that fire. They've got started at least.
Exactly. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about, and maybe we can riff on this, is that I would maintain, yes, there's an old school content strategy that's kind of predicated on like this need to drive lead and contact information to give to sales.
Yes.
Maybe another way to look at it is like, this is just your content strategy, which isn't that effective anymore when it comes to truly building a point of view, trust, and education for your community.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really going to be hard, I think, for a marketing team to say, listen, I'm going to do gated content strategy over here, and then I'm going to build a modern content engine over here at the same time that's community-based, podcast-based, thought leadership-based. Like, I would maintain it's going to be very difficult to do these two things. You need to decide. Do you want to build a content strategy and engine for kind of the modern way buyers buy? Or are you going to keep doing it the way we used to buy 10 or 15 years ago? It's extremely difficult to do both.
Yeah.
And I would maintain the old way. You don't even need to do it anymore, because like I said, the sales team has this handled. Push it back on them. Buy them a Zoom info subscription and tell them to go get the contact information that way.
Perfect. So I guess this ties into, if marketing is busy creating these amazing things that will create the demand and truly educate, what do you then direct your sales side to do? Go get those leads. Like, you're still dialing for dollars on the sales side, or has that changed then?
Yeah. So marketing does the demand creation game correctly.
Yep.
We'll see leads coming in that have high intent.
Yeah.
Not as many, but the ones that do come in will convert at a higher rate,
right,
to pipeline and close one revenue. And so obviously you need to optimize, let's call that the inbound flow. You need to optimize your sales team, a subset of your sales team, to be able to handle this journey. The journey where it's like, Cassidy's ready to buy. I want a demo. I want all my questions answered. I want to talk to a customer. I want to get pricing. I want to do all these things like that. What the sales team is supposed to be doing.
Right.
Optimize that flow. And you're going to see that flow be very efficient over time once you get good at it. In an ideal world, that flow can represent almost all the demand you need to drive revenue, but we know in reality, that's not going to be the case early on. Right. And so what you need to do is you need to have what we call different pipeline sources or different revenue programs to fill the gap. And so the sales team needs to go outbound, or partners, or expansion opportunities within your existing account, and so forth. And so, yeah, the sales team still going to build an outbound strategy. And what we've found in the data we've looked at is these two things can actually go hand in hand, right? So if you're building awareness and loyalty, and you're educating the buyer, and some of them are raising their hand to come inbound, guess whose job also gets easier? The sales team going outbound. Yeah. Because they've actually heard of you in your company. And so if you get the sales team going outbound and they're doing it in a in an efficient kind of high end way. Like we've all seen bad outbound, but we've also all seen good outbound. And we know that if somebody's coming outbound to us and we've heard of the company and we admire the company, we're more
Yeah.
likely to talk to them than if we've never heard of the company or the salesperson.
So
And
true.
so these two things play off each other. You do this really well in terms of your content strategy and building community and loyalty and thought leadership. You're going to get more people saying, I'm ready to buy. And you're going to get more people, you're going to get better conversion for your sales team who's going outbound to the same audience.
It makes sense. Coming up with a pipeline strategy, and I'm not independent of marketing, but not so locked into the old school method of, only the leads and then processing through and beating those to death, even because they're low quality and everyone's playing the same silly game and you're just playing along. It was funny though. You mentioned there's bad outbound. All the LinkedIn email I get comes to mind. You mentioned good outbound. Have you done good outbound? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, I haven't seen much, by the way. My
Right?
sales team and I talk about like what it should look like. What I think is important on good outbound, and I'm not an expert, but one is obviously research. I don't want to feel like this is a spam automated email, even though we all know we use sequences and we use tools, but there needs to be some level of personalization in research.
Right.
I think I need to know who you are. So it's very different. Like if an AE from Gong reaches out to me, I'm going to give them more benefit of the doubt than some company I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And in fact, if I've never heard of your company, I personally will never respond.
Yeah.
I know others may, but like obviously having an affinity towards that brand and some awareness and knowledge is critical.
Yeah. Especially if you've heard Udi on a podcast,
exactly
like this one, or,
good.
And the guy, he's cool. He's a magician. And then of course you're like, okay, I'll give your guy a shot or your gal. I'll listen for like a second.
Yeah. Let's be clear. We all bought Drift because of Dave Gerhardt. Not because it was a good product. Exactly. Dave Gerhardt leaves and what happened to Drift.
We're all here going like, wait, where's Dave and where's the party?
Exactly. I think the third thing on outbound is I think this is really hard for salespeople. I don't think the first message should be about a transaction. It could just be, hey, Casey, so-and-so, thinking of you. You might like this. Done. Like, not, do you want to book a meeting? Are you interested? Let's set some time up. Now, that's really hard to do in practice. We all are guilty of saying, we think we wrote a clever outbound sequence, but we all want to put our link at the end and say, let's book a meeting. But if you kind of take the spirit of what we're doing here in terms of building relationships and community, could we do that on an outbound channel as well?
Yeah.
Because you do get to go directly to the specific individual. You don't have to guess and hope somebody listens to the podcast or reads your blog or follows you on LinkedIn. You can literally go right to the source. So my point here is, I think there's a lot of room for innovation on the outbound channel in the future. I haven't necessarily seen it, but I bet we see more of this in the coming years. I hope, at least.
I do too, because it sounds better. To one of your earliest points, it sounds way more fun to execute this on the marketing side, this on the sales side. None of us are in a factory or in a sawdust mill trying to convert leads. Yeah, this sounds fun. So building on that, almost bubbling up to the highest level, you're chief growth officer. You're responsible for your company growing. It's 2023. We hit a new year. Does that look a little different too? Because you're not planning for the old marketing and for the old sales. Talk to me through how you look at planning for a new year, knowing that you're doing it in a different way.
Yeah, it's we built a process for this. We call it, revenue R&D. I won't get into that, but like, I'll just kind of give you the basic principle, and that is we look at revenue programs and we try to move them through a development process in a consistent way. and we want to measure them consistently as well, so we understand what's working and what's not. And the goal for all of us as marketers is to get some subset of programs to a place where we can forecast revenue growth. And so what that means for us then is we have a few programs like LinkedIn and podcasts and live events working for us as a company. And so we know, like going into 2023, we can forecast what we should, what we can expect those programs to deliver in terms of pipeline and revenue.
Yeah.
Then we have to look at, like anybody else, and say, how do we close the gap if there is a gap between our aspiration and our plan? And that's where we do like everybody else does, like what new programs do we want to spin up and start as experiments? And this is probably the key that we've all missed as marketing leaders, is we get very excited about a new program and we expect it to drive forecastable revenue right from the start. And we know that's not what's going to happen. That you need to start as an experiment and you have to have interim milestones of, am I getting positive signals from this experiment? Am I starting to see pipeline and revenue? Is it repeatable? Can I scale it and operationalize it? And for any revenue program, this can take 3, 6, 9 months. In some cases, it won't work and you need to kill it. And so we're in the same boat as everybody else. We have things that we can depend on, and we have things that are new that we want to try. And we have a discipline, structure, and process to measure and determine if those things are going to work or not. If they don't work, then we're going to try something else.
I like the analogy of the R&D, and I see the early programs are these experiments, and you don't know, and you don't even necessarily have a flow of revenue from them at the start. And so even the idea of looking for positive and negative signal, that makes a lot of sense to me. At some point, though, you're able to measure them. Do you lose the ability to measure when you leave the old school method? It's almost like seems so much easier if you're just cranking through a funnel, but now we've got something different. How do you measure in when it gets ideal? How do you know it's working?
So simply, we see people coming in, raising their hand to talk to us.
Okay.
This is the constraint. Like we would think of it, it's almost like an interesting analogy is kind of like, think about the B2C world, like an e-commerce world.
Mm-hmm.
You're driving people to the shopping cart, and then you want to make sure they convert through the shopping cart. We're thinking of the website and the B2B world the same. We want people to come to the, consume and be aware of us out on other channels where consumers in B2B hang out.
Yeah.
And then we want them to come to our website, educate themselves, and then click a button to say, I'm ready to talk to you. And everything kind of comes through that point. And then obviously when they come in, the natural question is, well, how do you know what program drove them there? And what we do is we ask them. And so we put on the form, how did you hear about us? And we let them fill it in. And then we put that in the CRM and we do some manipulation of the data behind the scenes to categorize that. And then, we also do kind of like platform-based attribution as well. So we can kind of look at what captured demand. But what we're really looking for when we ask somebody, like we asked Casey, how did you hear about us? We're looking for what created the demand in your mind.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I heard this podcast and I want to talk to you. I saw this post on LinkedIn and I reached out. I joined your live event, or I heard about you from Joe, and Joe said I should go contact you. So,
Yeah.
did you go to Google and you type in Refine Labs and you come to our website and the attribution model says Google search? Sure. That's good to know that when you heard this, you went to Google. But what triggered you? Google didn't trigger you. Something else triggered you. And we want to make sure we capture that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I like it. And it sounds like it's not, there's kind of a thing with tech where we're like, ooh, we don't even need to ask that anymore because people always get it wrong. We're going to just do it all programmatically with our links and with tracking and everything. But that seems to have further confused us. Are you asking in a drop down or just almost like an open text box? Like what started this whole search for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. We advise to use open text. And then
Makes
on the
sense.
back end, you can do some string analysis and categorize these things. And
Sure.
the reason that's important is I think we'll see people write. I mean, obviously, sometimes you get garbage, and that just goes with the territory. Sometimes you get, it was podcast episode 234, or I've listened to 25 episodes, or, my friend at this company who I've known since my childhood told me, and I trust him. And I think people write this all out. It's crazy.
Wow.
And you're like,
And that's
"Yeah, it's good
money
to
right
know."
there. That's just
money.
gold. That's
It's money.
digital gold. See, I would imagine it's not even a text box. It's, speaking HTML. I'm almost putting a paragraph box in there. Like, hey, tell me anything you want to tell me about how you, what do you ask on there? Is it how you found us, or is it more of that
Yeah,
sort of what started
We
this?
say, how did you hear about us?
Just
That's
how did
it.
you hear about us?
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's funny. I also have this, my last company, we did this in the sales process. We'd make sure the sales team asked.
Okay.
And we're ramping up a program, and we're running, paid media on LinkedIn and on Facebook and Instagram. And it's like new for the company. And like, we would get the question. Of course you would get the question. I would have the questions as CMO, and CEO would have the question, like, is it working or not? And we'd see more inbound demand coming in, and we're like, wow, where's this demand coming from? And we look into our systems, and we see, oh, Google search or something like that,
Yeah.
which we know we're running nothing. We're doing nothing on Google search. And then we get on the call, and and this is an analytics product, and we heard over and over, Instagram, Instagram, Instagram. So think about, there was never a hypothesis in any of our minds that Instagram would be the dominant platform over LinkedIn, over the podcast, over Facebook, the 3 or 4 other programs we're running.
Wow.
And it was comical. We would just laugh because it was like the sales team would be like, "Yep, never went on Instagram."
Really?
Yeah, but there's nothing in the data at a system level on the capture demand side that said Instagram, because they saw it, and they saw it over and over, and then they went to Google and they Googled the company.
Right.
They think like nobody's clicking the ad in Instagram because you're not there to click ads, but you
Right.
saw it, and you're gonna file it away, and
Yeah.
then later when you're back in the office, you're gonna go type it into Google, and
Yeah.
Google gets all the credit.
Google gets all the credit. Yeah, you got to wonder. And I can even imagine, especially in the old days, or a lot of people now, if you had that as a drop down, you don't even know. You're not even doing anything on Instagram. You wouldn't know to make that a drop down.
No.
Yeah.
You know how the drop downs work too. Like, if people are just going to pick the first, like people are going to they just want to get through the form. And so
Yeah.
here we make it mandatory. So you have to put something in to get through the form, but we're not giving you a path of least resistance of selecting the first thing. It's like, no, you
Yeah.
got to type something in. And by the way, it's not perfect. We'll get
No, of course.
garbage. But we often get more truth than not truth. And really
Yes.
what you're looking for is not an absolute number, but you're looking for trends. You're looking for positive signals. You're looking for something that seems repeatable and consistent. So do we get 100% perfect data? No. But 75, 80% good data tells you something you didn't know before.
Yeah. And it's a lot easier to decipher. Yeah. To your point, maybe you have to do some formula wizardry to figure out how to normalize a couple but I'll take that over completely obfuscated, cloudy things saying Google search, and it's nothing to do with Google whatsoever.
Exactly.
Yeah. At least you can get the answer as opposed to you'll not even know and you have to guess on it. That's amazing.
Yeah, and in that world I'm talking about, like we didn't spend any dollars on Google. We didn't have an SEO strategy. We didn't have a paid Google search strategy. And then you see Google, and you're like, okay, well, we know it's not because of anything we did,
Right?
In that platform, but it was certainly caused by something else that we did outside of Google. And it's natural. Like nobody remembers to type in the company URL.
Right.
Go to Google, they type in the company, and then Google gets the credit.
Yeah. Surf by browser. Great reminder that anything could be that. In your case, it was Instagram. For everyone else listening,
Anything.
it could be that thing and people are just clicking through to it. Or
Yeah.
not clicking through. They're not clicking through and they're searching later. So what a great reminder that is a thing.
So our company today, not surprising if you know who we are, it's podcast, LinkedIn. I know Sydney Waterfall. I know this person. Like we get people called out. I follow Evan Hughes on LinkedIn. I follow Megan Bowen. Like, I heard Sydney on a podcast. Like, we get this type of descriptive feedback in here, and it's not just the CEO now. It's everybody, a lot of people in the company.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really cool, man. Well, my next question really is like, Cassidy, who are you? How do you know all these things? Can you take me back in time to like little you, right? Did little Cassidy know he was going to be an absolute beast in the sales and marketing and growth world? Like, take me back in time.
Now, little Cassie certainly didn't grow up thinking I would be a marketer or seller in B2B, in the B2B market. I grew up in a small town in Iowa, 7,000 people. Like any kid growing up, I played sports and wanted to do that professionally, even though I wasn't, I'm athletically challenged. So that wasn't going to happen. Um, went to college for engineering. My first job though, out of school, I was a consultant way back when, putting in big IT systems into large Fortune 500 companies. And so, um, I kind of think about my career in three ways. Like that early part of the career, man, I thought I was going to be a plant manager. I was a
Mm,
supply chain manufacturing guy. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to be the COO of a manufacturing plant and then maybe a divisional leader. And I was super passionate about supply chain and manufacturing. I went back and got my MBA and I thought I'm going to keep doing that. And then I wandered into a telecommunications company and I found my way into an organization building software. And the next thing I know is like, I'm going to be a CPO. That was the
nope.
second part of my career. I'm going to run product at a company. I'm going to be a GM of a software product business. And I was on that journey. And then along the way, a mentor of mine convinced me I should try marketing. We need somebody in marketing. And so my first marketing job, begrudgingly, I did not want to do this.
Kicking and screaming.
Kicking and screaming, was running marketing for a $500 million software division in a big company. And so I knew really nothing outside of product marketing. And, fortunately, I had a lot of great people around me and kind of studied my ass off and kind of figured it out. And for better or worse, I've kind of gone down the commercial route, marketer, sales, growth officer, CRO.
Yeah.
But, I like what gets me excited is like driving change, fixing things. I'm not a great person to manage the status quo. Like you can find better people to do that. But if the situation's kind of chaotic and unclear, those are the environments I like to come into. And maybe that harkens back to my consulting days or whatever. I don't know. Like
Oh,
comes from
totally. The
engineering,
break fix, right?
engineering
Like, let's
background.
break
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Let's break it so I can fix it. I like that. And so I've done a lot of things because I've been around a long time.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of at the last third of my career and, what I'm passionate about now is like having fun at work, developing and training the next generation of talent, which we have a lot out of this company, and just being intellectually challenged. So,
Wow. You guys hiring?
for select roles here and there,
Okay.
like most of our hires come through kind of our referral process. So I think which is pretty strong.
Yeah.
We get referrals pretty much
Which
every.
means people should
week.
connect with you on LinkedIn and not
So
be
people should connect. Yeah,
weird about it. Say
yeah,
hi.
like reach out and get to know us. That's how you get into our company.
I love that. Who's the ideal company to work with Refine Labs?
Yeah, so I think this will be changing over time, but we've
Sure.
historically it's been B2B companies. They tended to be SaaS based, kind of mid stage. They probably had some success in their early stage, and now they've hit a plateau and they're looking to like take the next step. So maybe call that from like 10 million to 50 or 25 to 150.
Sure.
We And this is an interesting one. I'll kind of say this because maybe it's important for others out there. You need to kind of be philosophically aligned with us from the start.
Wow.
And so part of what's interesting about our marketing strategy is we want people to raise their hand to come talk to us, is you have to kind of believe our point of view and are willing to change how you've done things. And so you think so that's a real positive in one aspect in terms of people coming inbound, because we know that they've studied us, followed us, listened to our podcasts, all the things that you would love as a marketer, and the ability to kind of convert those at a good rate.
Yeah.
It exists. This is a challenge on the other side. If you've never heard of us, it's really hard to explain the philosophy in a short period of time, because we're really saying to companies, you need to be prepared for a transformation. And if you're not willing to go from this old world that most companies are operating in to this new world, which requires a different mindset, it kind of requires a different way to measure
Yeah.
and execute, then you're not a fit for us. And so it's really interesting from the sales and marketing perspective. So we have this cohort of an audience that's really right to work with us. There's a whole universe of people out there who haven't heard of us like any other company. And those people are really hard to tap into, like, on an outbound channel. As an
Yeah.
example. So,
Which makes sense why podcasts and just hearing the different evangelists in the company speaking, it makes sense, right? Someone who would listen to this entire conversation, transformations all over the place here, right? Like
yeah.
your myth was about doing the old thing. And so if people had to have made it through this whole podcast to be like, all right, I'm in. And it sounds like those people, and and now they're in your community and they're subscribed and they're consuming more of this. Those people are best to choose to work with you, because you can't go in cold and say, hey, that whole system you've depended on and used as a crutch, we're gonna blow that up. And people are like, what? It's you just too much of a jump, right? Too much of a leap.
Yeah, we're not here to optimize your status quo. If your status quo is the old world, we're here to bring it to the new world. And that can be messy and challenging. And we totally get it if companies aren't up for that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that we believe in. And we have the data behind it to prove it. And, part of our process is helping companies understand like what's really happening in their business and why there is a need to change.
Hell yeah. Dude, so powerful. One question to sort of wrap up a lot of this part, and just learning about you and this background. Have you tried everything? You've led all the things, because I may have a time machine up here in New Hampshire, right? Or over here, more like, depending on geography. Right? So you come visit, right? And maybe it's inbound or one of these events. You come visit. We use this time machine, get some beer, some lobster, go back in time. But you get to visit yourself after graduating from college. And you get to meet yourself and have a conversation. What kind of things would you tell yourself, knowing all the places you've been and the plants you thought of running and the schools you've been to, and what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself to slow down and enjoy the ride. That, I really, I have kids now. I'm old. Like, I enjoy every day and kind of the challenge each day provides. I don't sweat or obsess over the future like you do when you're in your 20s. And so, what I probably tell myself is just enjoy it. Enjoy your friends. Enjoy your colleagues. Put in the hard work you need to put in. But take a break and go enjoy life, because it goes fast.
Hell yeah. I love that. I guess it's the follow-up to that is, would younger you listen?
Probably not. Will my kids listen? No. So younger me would not listen.
You're like, I'm gonna look like that? Cool. I think there's a movie, right? There was a movie recently where that was like a Disney movie where guy is, I don't know if it was Wahlberg. Somebody goes back in time and they see themselves as a kid and they're interacting with each other. It's kind of funny. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure my younger self would be like, all right, this is just an old guy, like my parents trying to tell me what life's going to be like. And I'm not going to listen to this person.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Until you got to be your age now and be like, wait a minute, You mean that time machine guy was real?
Yeah, exactly. And and I'm the parent, like we all are, who thinks that they're going to be able to share their wisdom with their kids, and their kids are going to actually listen to them. So
Right.
I'll try to share my wisdom, and my 12-year-old will look at me like, "Hi, yeah, thanks, Dad." Pat me on the back.
I'm glad that's universal because you drop some wisdom bomb on them, be like, well, actually, the meaning of the entire universe is this. So they're like, hey, do you mind giving me an extra hour on my Nintendo? Wait, did you get that? All right, here's your hour. Right. Like,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. Yeah, can I have a ride? Or hey, you get $5 to go to Starbucks? They're like, yeah. Thanks, Dad. If I listen to
Yeah,
your wisdom, do I get anything out of it?
I know, right?
Yeah,
So
such is
crazy, man.
life. Yeah.
Such is life. Well, hey, where can people reach out? Where do you want them to reach out on social? Where do you want them to connect? Websites, resources? Where do you want them to go?
Yeah. So if you want to find me, just go to LinkedIn. I'm not talented enough to manage multiple social platforms, so I spend my time on LinkedIn. If you want to learn about Refine Labs, just go to refinelabs.com, the URL, or you type it into Google, Refine Labs.
Type it into Google. Give Google some more credit.
But we have podcasts. You'll find a lot of our company on LinkedIn, so we're easy to find out there.
That's awesome. Well, dude, I totally appreciate you coming out here, schooling me on the old way, the new way. I will say, I have been dabbling in the new way unintentionally, and this just really helped me square things away in my own mind for 2023. Just of really throwing off those old shackles from the old ways of doing things. So I'm excited. I really appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and let me know if you need any help. I'm confident with what I've seen from you, Casey, that the new way is built for you.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I appreciate that. That's high praise coming from you because you Refine just exudes that. It's like it's the best example I know of a company that's doing that across the board. So I appreciate that. And for those listening, if you learned something, because I freaking did, then and you know this because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back, then share this with someone else. That's thought leadership. Just getting good information in other people's hands. One person, 9 people, 3,000 people. Let them have it. Have at it. With that, dude, Cassidy, thanks again, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Love it.
All right, everyone. This has been a crazy episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.